William Shakespeare was an English playwright, poet, and actor who lived during the late 16th and early 17th centuries. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest writers in the English language and one of the most influential dramatists in world history. Shakespeare wrote approximately 39 plays, 154 sonnets, and several longer poems. His works explore universal subjects such as love, ambition, jealousy, power, betrayal, friendship, revenge, death, and human nature. His famous plays include Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, The Tempest, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Julius Caesar, Richard III, Henry V, Early Life and Family Background. William Shakespeare was born in April 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon, Warwickshire, England. His exact birth date is unknown, but traditionally it is celebrated on 23rd April. He was the son of John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. His father was a successful local businessman who worked in several occupations, including glove-making, leather trading, farming, local government. John Shakespeare eventually became an important civic official in Stratford. William was one of several children in the Shakespeare family. Growing up in Stratford exposed him to the social, commercial, and political life of Elizabethan England. Education: Shakespeare probably attended the King's New School in Stratford. At the school, he likely studied Latin, classical literature, history, rhetoric, grammar, logic, ancient Roman writers. This classical education had a major influence on his later writing. Shakespeare's plays demonstrate knowledge of Roman history, mythology, philosophy, and literature. Many of his stories also draw inspiration from earlier English and European sources. Marriage and family. In 1582, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway. Shakespeare was about 18 years old, while Anne was about 26. They had 3 children. 1. Susanna, born in 1583 too. Hamlet, Shakespeare's son, born in 1585-3. Judith, Shakespeare's daughter, born in 1585. Hamlet died in 1596 at the age of 11. Historians cannot know exactly how Shakespeare's personal experiences influenced his writing, but themes of family, grief, death, and loss appear frequently throughout his works. Shakespeare's lost years. One of the mysteries of Shakespeare's life is the period between approximately 1585 and 1592. Very little documentary evidence survives about what he was doing during these years. This period is sometimes called Shakespeare's lost years. There are many theories about his activities. He may have worked as a teacher, worked in a legal environment, traveled, worked with theatrical companies, begun writing plays, performed as an actor. However, there is no definitive evidence explaining exactly what he did during this period. Shakespeare moves to London. By the early 1590s, Shakespeare had become involved in London's growing theater industry. London was becoming a major cultural center, and public theaters attracted audiences from different social classes. Shakespeare worked as both playwright, actor. He eventually became a member of an important theatrical company, known first as the Lord Chamberlain's Men. After King James I came to the English throne in 1603, the company became known as the King's Men. The Globe Theatre, one of the most important places associated with Shakespeare, is the Globe Theatre. The original Globe Theatre was built in 1599 by Shakespeare's theatrical company and its associates. It became strongly associated with Shakespeare's plays. The theater was large and roughly circular, open to the sky, capable of holding thousands of spectators. used for both comedy and tragedy, designed for performances during daylight. Unlike modern theaters, Elizabethan theaters had relatively simple scenery. Shakespeare's language and the actors' performances were therefore extremely important. On Shakespeare's major types of works. Shakespeare's plays are generally divided into three major categories. A. Tragedies. Shakespeare's tragedies often involve powerful characters whose weaknesses, mistakes, or circumstances lead to suffering and death. Important tragedies include Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, Antony and Cleopatra, Coriolanus, Titus Andronicus, B. comedies. His comedies often involve romance, mistaken identities, conflicts, disguises, and humorous situations. Important comedies include A Midsummer Night's Dream, Twelfth Night, As You Like It, Much Ado About Nothing, The Merchant of Venice, The Comedy of Errors, The Taming of the Shrew, Love's Labour's Lost, See Histories. Shakespeare's history plays focus primarily on English kings and political conflicts. Important history plays include Richard II, Henry IV, Part 1, Henry IV, Part 2, Henry V, Henry VI, Part 1, Henry VI, Part 2, Henry VI, Part 3, Richard III, King John, Henry VIII. Famous works. Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet is one of Shakespeare's most famous tragedies. It tells the story of two young lovers from rival families, the Montagues, the Capulets. Romeo and Juliet fall deeply in love despite their family's hatred. Their secret relationship eventually ends in tragedy. Major themes: love, family conflict, fate, youth, violence, death. Hamlet. Hamlet is often considered Shakespeare's greatest tragedy. The story follows Prince Hamlet of Denmark, whose father has died. Hamlet's father's ghost appears and claims that he was murdered by Hamlet's uncle, Claudius, who has become king and married Hamlet's mother. Hamlet struggles with questions of revenge, morality, death, madness, truth, betrayal. One of the most famous lines in English literature comes from this play: to be or not to be. Macbeth tells the story of a Scottish nobleman who becomes obsessed with becoming king. Three witches predict that Macbeth will become king. Encouraged by Lady Macbeth, he murders King Duncan and takes the throne. However, his ambition leads to fear, violence, guilt, and eventually destruction. Major themes: ambition, guilt, power, fate, violence, supernatural forces. Othello is a tragedy about jealousy, manipulation, racism, trust, and betrayal. Othello is a respected military commander who marries Desdemona. His trusted associate Iago manipulates him into believing that Desdemona has been unfaithful. Othello's jealousy eventually leads to devastating consequences. The play demonstrates how manipulation and suspicion can destroy relationships. The King Lear. King Lear tells the story of an aging king who decides to divide his kingdom among his three daughters. He asks them to demonstrate how much they love him. Two daughters flatter him, while his youngest daughter, Cordelia, refuses to exaggerate her feelings. Lear makes a terrible decision that ultimately leads to suffering, madness, and death. Major themes: family, power, loyalty, madness, aging, betrayal, justice. A Midsummer Night's Dream. Unlike Shakespeare's tragedies, A Midsummer Night's Dream is a magical comedy. The story combines young lovers, fairies, magic, mistaken identities, comedy, a group of amateur actors. The fairy world is ruled by Oberon and Titania. The character Puck creates much of the confusion through magical tricks. The play explores love and the strange ways people behave when they fall in love. The Shakespeare sonnets. Shakespeare was not only a playwright, he was also a highly influential poet. He wrote 154 sonnets. Many of his sonnets explore love, beauty, time, aging, mortality, friendship, desire, poetry, and immortality. One of his most famous sonnets begins with, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" His poetry helped demonstrate the expressive possibilities of the English language. Shakespeare's writing. Style. Shakespeare's writing is famous for its extraordinary use of language. He frequently used metaphor, comparing one thing to another to create a deeper meaning, imagery, using vivid descriptions to create pictures in the reader's mind, wordplay. Shakespeare frequently used puns, double meanings, jokes, contrasts, soliloquies. A character speaks alone, revealing their private thoughts to the audience. For example, Hamlet's famous "to be or not to be" speech is a soliloquy. Blank verse. Many of Shakespeare's plays were written partly in blank verse, especially using unrhymed iambic pentameter. Shakespeare's understanding of human nature. One reason Shakespeare remains famous is that his characters feel psychologically complex. His characters often experience conflicting emotions. For example, Macbeth wants power, but is also troubled by guilt. Hamlet wants revenge, but struggles with morality and uncertainty. Othello loves Desdemona, but becomes consumed by jealousy. King Lear is powerful, but fails to understand genuine loyalty. These characters demonstrate Shakespeare's interest in the complexity of human behavior. The Shakespeare and the English language. Shakespeare had an enormous influence on English literature and language. Many expressions associated with Shakespeare have become part of everyday English. His works helped popularize words and expressions involving ideas such as jealousy, lonely, critical, majestic, break the ice, wild goose chase, heart of gold. Some claims about Shakespeare, inventing individual words, are uncertain, but his works unquestionably helped popularize many words and phrases. On Shakespeare's later life. By the early 17th century, Shakespeare had become a successful playwright, actor, and shareholder in his theater company. He eventually returned increasingly to Stratford-upon-Avon, where he owned property. In 1616, Shakespeare died at the age of 52. He was buried at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon. His grave bears a famous warning against disturbing his remains. The first folio, one of the most important events after Shakespeare's death, occurred in 1623, when two of his fellow actors, John Heminges and Henry Condell, helped publish the first folio. The first folio collected 36 of Shakespeare's plays. Without it, several important plays might have been lost. The publication helped preserve Shakespeare's dramatic legacy for future generations.